Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. The first item on our work session today is a proclamation for Big Brothers Big Sisters Month. I can get some representatives. So the proclamation is for Big Brothers Big Sisters Month, September 2020. Whereas Big Brothers Big Sisters of Washington County enables life-changing enables life-changing mentoring relationships to ignite the power and potential of young people in our community. Whereas investing in young people's futures pays off with a social return on investment of $18 to every one spent, through improved economic, health, and social outcomes for young people with mentors. And whereas by changing the course of young lives, we shape our community's social and economic future. And whereas Big Brothers Big Sisters of Washington County creates over 100 meaningful opportunities for adults in Washington County and throughout our region to help young people achieve their biggest possible futures through their volunteer commitment and support. And whereas the agency's goal is to recruit more volunteers based on the needs of young people in our community. Now therefore, I, Robert E. Brucci II, Mayor of the City of Hagerstown, Maryland, do hereby proclaim and recognize the month of September 2020 as Big Brothers Big Sisters Month, and encourage our citizens to volunteer or donate by visiting www.bbswcmd.org and learn more about how you can get involved in igniting potential. Signed by me. You guys want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Brucci. I appreciate the presentation of the proclamation. I'm Tom Klein. I'm the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Washington County, and we're really happy to be here and feel very blessed to have the support of our community, both businesses in the community as well as our local government. So thank you. I'd like to introduce our guests who are with me today. This is Kathy Curtin and Zane Schreiber. They are both bigs in our program. I serve as a big as well, and they also serve on my board of directors. So thank you, Mayor Brucci. Thank you to the council members for having us today.
Thank you very much for all you do in our community. I know that you have a lot of outreach and you help a lot of kids. So thank you very much. Eric, next up, Central Chemical passes surface water sampling on city properties. Jim?
Good afternoon. The remediation and cleanup efforts at Central Chemical continue, and the city recently received a request from Newfields Inc. They're the environmental consultant that's working with the responsible party group at Central Chemical to do some additional sampling of surface waters to try to detect any presence of pesticides or contaminants that are leaving the Central Chemical site and migrating elsewhere. They would like to install sampling devices at two different locations, both at City Park, one in City Park Lake and the other at the spring at the Hager House. Just as some background, Central Chemical opened in the late 30s. During World War II, it produced pesticides like DDT and chlordane, which have both been banned. In the 1980s, Central Chemical pretty much shut down, and shortly after that, it was discovered that some of these pesticides and other waste materials had been disposed of in the ground in pits or trenches at the site. and in 1997 it became a Superfund site. And so EPA has been working with this group to evaluate the site and try to get it cleaned up. And this proposed sampling is just another step in the process of trying to characterize what's going on at the site, figure out how much or how far some of these things might have migrated, and come up with a final remediation plan to deal with it. So there's a right of entry form that's attached to the packet memo that would give Newfields and its contractors the right to install these sampling devices and then periodically show up at the site and collect samples out of the sampling devices to have them tested. And actually on the phone, if you have specific questions, I believe that Don Gunster from Newfields has called in. So if you have specific questions about the cleanup or what this sampling is about, if I can't answer it, I'm sure that Don will be able to answer your questions as well.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Don Gunster, if you can hear me. I appreciate the opportunity and to join the meeting. Thank you for allowing me to do this remotely.
Jim, what was the, do you recall, or does the gentleman on the phone, what was found in the 2014 samples of surface water?
I actually do not. Don, do you know what the results of the 2014, 2015 sampling were?
I do not have those results in front of me. We can certainly provide that information. In general, there were very low concentrations found. These sampling devices that we're proposing now are what they refer to as passive samplers. So they get a time-weighted integrated measurement, and it's just a confirmation that from the previous sampling work that the concentrations are indeed low. And I'm sure the results of this report can certainly be made available.
Thank you. I personally have no problem with it.
Okay, thank you. We'll work with the city attorney to get this right of entry agreement executed and sent back to Newfields. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Don.
Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the help and the cooperation. So thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Hagerstown Ice and Sports Complex.
Good afternoon. Paul Sweeney's here with me, familiar face, I've seen him many times. We want to talk about two issues at the Ice and Sports Complex. One is some improvements that we think need to be made to the actual environment of the rink, and the other is about the rent during the pandemic. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul and let him start us out.
Okay, first, in the packet that you got, we kind of gave you some numbers and some information on what we need to do, and let me kind of give you a little bit of a background on this. In the pictures up there, you can see, it's kind of tough to see. Look at in your packet, does everybody have that? Second page, there's kind of like a bump on the ice. That happened overnight, and that's been happening overnight quite regularly. There's another picture as well. What's happening is in the summertime, when it gets really hot outside, it's a metal roof. And I don't really understand the science of it, but the roof gets very, very hot. We have ice at the bottom. The insulation that we had up there is really not working like it should be working. And what's happening, I believe, is it's pulling condensation up, and it's forming on the beams, and it's dripping down on the ice quite regularly. And it's been getting progressively worse from year to year. 10 years ago, there were some bumps, but wasn't happening quite as often as it is right now. It's getting worse every year. We thought that maybe painting the beams would kind of help the situation a little bit, and we actually tried to paint the beams this summer, and it was impossible because the beams were so wet, it wouldn't hold the paint. It was impossible. So we've done a lot of research, contacted several companies, got some numbers back, and there's a company that puts in something called a low E ceiling. And I don't really understand the science. Rodney could probably maybe explain a little bit better. Our general manager understands it. But it's a ceiling that you put below the current ceiling, creates some sort of a, almost like a vacuum, I guess, in between, and traps the heat and prevents it from causing this particular type of issue. The other issue we have is that we have two dehumidifiers in the rink that have been there since the rink opened almost 25 years ago. And they're just really not operating as good as they were in the beginning, and technology has changed a lot, and they're just not keeping up with what the issue is that we're having. So at some point, we're probably going to need to replace those as well. We're not talking about doing that now. We feel that putting the low E ceiling in will stem the problem somewhat, and at least prevent this from happening for the next couple of years. But we do need to do something about the humidification system as well.
I think the idea behind the low E ceiling, well, I guess the obvious question is, why is this happening now? And it didn't happen as much in the past. And I think it's because as the moist air in the rink condenses against that ceiling, it saturates what little insulation was there, which in the roof was only like 4 inches, which should have been a lot more. I think everybody would agree with that. Saturates that, and so it really has no insulating value anymore. So that roof just gets really warm in the summer, and it's what's causing this situation to get worse. The low E ceiling would add more insulation, and the E stands for I can't say it. We'll just say low E. And it's trying to keep that heat transfer coming from the outside into the rink environment itself.
And the issue is that it's very dangerous, you know, when those bumps are on the ice, especially for figure skaters. If somebody's skating backwards and they hit a bump like that, it's not going to be a good outcome. So what happens is every morning when that happens, we have to send a crew out to basically chop the bumps down. And it takes probably about a half an hour before we can actually run the Zamboni. If we ran the Zamboni over those bumps, it sounds like a simple solution, that would just tear chunks of ice up. It would cut it cleanly. So we literally have to, during the summertime, every day, do that before we have our first event on the ice. And then usually several times after that, we have to do the same thing.
So what the proposal is to use funds that we have in our CIP 843 to match 25% from them, 75% from us, which is where the user agreement's set up, to put in this low E ceiling. And that's something that could be done later this year.
Well, the important thing is we're not going to have to shut the rink down while it's being done. The company we're working with is out of Canada, and they understand how rinks work. So they told us they'd be able to come in very early in the morning, probably around 3 o'clock in the morning, work for, probably 8 hours. I think it's probably maybe a 2-week project, but we'll be able to still operate during that time.
You want to talk about the rent relief too?
Yeah. We're asking for, not money back, but rent relief for the months of April, May, and June. We were shut down. We couldn't create any sort of revenue during those times. I believe in June, when we opened back up, we finished a couple of programs that had been cut short. So again, we had really no revenue coming from those. We didn't really start bringing money back into the rink until July. So.
Were you able to get any kind of relief during that period from grants or?
Yeah, we applied for the PPL program, and we did get some money for that. We were able to continue to pay our staff. We were able to, we normally take the ice out every year, and we took advantage of the time that we were shut down to do it during that time frame. So we were able to still pay the employees with the monies that we got from the PPL. We also applied recently for another grant that we did get some money from as well. I think it was $10,000.
That from the Rise Up grant through Washington County?
Yeah, it's the Together We Rise, I believe is what it's called. And that helped a lot too. A lot of people, we're getting people to come back in, but everybody's kind of coming back in slowly, so.
Year over year, it looks like the utilities, which we pay, looks like it was about a $3,000 savings for us during that time while the rink was shut down, just because there wasn't as much usage there.
As far as the rent relief goes, I have no problem with making an immediate decision to give them relief to the degree of our money savings from the utilities, so that we would start off with a net zero. We saved $3,000, we could reimburse that. As to any other rent relief, I would think that this would be one of those items that needs to go in with the all the other group that have put in for requests for money, that we're saying we're going to look at our finances and decide who gets what at the appropriate time, would be my suggestion.
So the utility savings was $3,300.
Right, so I'd recommend that we immediately do that, and then put them in with that whole other group of, of agency contributions. I think that this fits as well as any of those agencies that we're looking at for contributions. And then I think the time is going to come when everybody looks at our finances and those respective finances and decides how to distribute that money.
Everybody else okay with Lou's suggestion?
I am,
I'm good with it.
yeah.
There you go.
Okay. So if I understand it, $3,300 will be forgiven, and the rest will be considered at a later date. Is that right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Is moving forward with the low E ceiling?
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
fine
I
with
think
that.
everybody's all right with that, too.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, they think that's going to, I mean, you've got a dehumidification problem also.
Yes.
You've got, I think this is like, I'm trying to wrap my head around how this works, because this is like in aviation, it's advection fog. It's when you have warm, moist air that runs over a cold water, and it creates a real dense sea fog that you cannot see how to land in. I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like cold, moist air rising into warm beams, and
Well, we have the fog issue sometimes too, when the dehumidifiers, when we first opened back up, that was a problem. The dehumidifiers, we had to make a couple of adjustments to kind of clear that up a little bit better.
so, and then you said those are 25 years old, so
Yeah.
they're
And there's not
done.
much they can do with them, really.
Yeah.
When that humidity gets above, I think 65% is kind of their optimal.
Mm-hmm.
Above that, then it gets foggy, condensation. You're right, it is a humidity issue.
Yeah,
The ceiling is something we think we can attack now. We feel like we have to do this in two phases because of the dollar amount. So the ceiling's something we could attack now, and then hopefully budget for the.
yeah, you're gonna have to do both, but it's
think we have to do
odd,
both.
it's odd that it's happening at night. You're coming back in the morning, because you would think it would,
Well, I think it's
It happens
just
all day
dripping,
long.
yeah. What's happening during the daytime when it's really hot, all the moisture ends up on the beams, and it just drips through the night. And,
It really drips all day long, though, doesn't
yeah.
it?
it
I guess
does.
during the day, though, you've got movement on the ice.
Yeah,
and
we
it's
do.
being
Breaks these
spread
Right,
out.
and we also have the Zamboni going out and cutting every
Yeah.
hour and a half as well, so they're not getting a chance to kind of get as high as they do when you have a 10-hour period where it's not being addressed.
Well, don't stop dumping the Zamboni outside, because my wife and I go have a snowball fight every weekend when we ride by there.
Okay,
All
we'll
right.
move forward with that.
Thank you, Rob.
Great, thank you very much.
Rodney Mazel State. Concession services, pandemic rent relief.
On a similar note, Nina, who runs the concession stand in City Parks here with me tonight. On a similar note, we had a concession contract out from 2018. It's an annual contract. We're in the third of a year of a 4-year contract. And I'll let Nina describe what she's been facing this year as far as the amount of people in the park and also just being closed for a long period of time. But she's also requesting rent relief. The way the bid works is that bidders like her submitted bids, and it's actually the high bidder in this case is the one that got the award. And that was done back in 2018. And then also, we have a similar concession stand down at the pool. Similar issues there. The pool wasn't open during really the prime time of the swim season. So he's seen significant reductions in the amount of customers he has. But, you want to share what?
Sure. Unfortunately, COVID is probably the largest problem in this 3-year period, but not the only problem I've had in 3 years, which makes this year even more difficult to survive. The first year that I took the lease, not realizing how many of the activities that are typically scheduled in the park are no longer scheduled in the park, like Blues Fest and other activities have been constantly decreasing. That was also the first year that we had unprecedented historical rain. We were closed over 50% of the days in the park, which made the first year a loss. The second year, which was last year, there was ongoing work in the park and the delay of the playground equipment being finished, and decrease in population in the park has just been ongoing. So coming into the third year, I lost April and May of the first year, 2018, because of work that needed to be done in the stand. And then last year, bathroom work in the park affected the traffic in April and May as well. And then this year, April and May completely closed until the last week in May. So the 2 months, which are the months during the year that make the bulk of the revenue for the concession stand, have been lost. Since that time, we did open at the end of May, beginning of June, and we basically broke even in the month of June and July, and we were operating in a loss in August, and currently now in April. I worked all day today. Of course, it rained a little bit, and we're running a loss. My concern is I have a year left as an option for a lease, and I would like the opportunity to at least get back the money I've invested in the equipment and my time and energy into the park. And I am, yes, looking for relief this year and hoping to maybe recoup losses next year and pray for a better year. So, yes, that's why I'm here.
So you're saying there's only 2 months that you can make a profit?
What? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is those are the largest months. Same situation as the pool. When the pool opens, the first month is really busy, and then they decrease as well. For us, we open in April, and everybody's anxious to get to the park in the spring after a long winter. You'll notice that at the car wash, people want to get out, they want to be, and so April's a big month, and our April and May have been hindered the last 3 years, which has made it very, very difficult. Usually those months will help carry the lease throughout the year, so we've lost our profit-making months the last 3 years that have started with my contract. So yes, I'm in a dire situation, and COVID has just basically been, the death blow for my investment in the park and in this bid situation.
We spend about $2,500 there a year, just on utilities, pest control, dumpster, equipment. That's, the equipment maintenance and building maintenance are in addition to that. So there is some cost to the city for having that concession stand open. I did talk to the county about their concession stands, and they didn't open them at all this year.
So- I had the luxury, if that's the right word, of working for the county at Marty Snook when I was younger in the concession. I guess there I never really considered that to be a money-making operation. You know, it was a component of the park activity, and for that particularly the school. And just for the record, I've had conversations with Nina about this subject outside of our conversation here this evening, and I want to express to staff and to the council to make sure that it's clear, you know, the thoughts that I've expressed to Nina on this is, I guess, as a longtime patron of the city park, you know, growing up in the South End and going to it, I think I never really realized that it was there for a money-making purpose. I mean, I don't know how many of the rest of you ever really saw it that way. I kind of saw it as that's where you got a snow cone and your stuff to throw the ducks, which, you know, you're not allowed to do. I never really saw it as like a business of someone as much as I saw it as a convenience of
Yeah, same here.
amenity within the park. And so I guess, you know, when I got to talking to Nina about it, I didn't really understand it as well in the context of you're there to sort of make a profit. I think as a council member, I could care less if the person makes a profit. I care more about it being, that amenity being open and available to the public. And so I wouldn't want to lose that. And I certainly wouldn't want somebody to operate it at a loss, you know, to themselves because of rent, because I guess I just didn't see, and I don't see that place any differently than I see the concession at the pool or the concession at the Little Leagues that much different. I kind of see them as they're, you know, an attribute to all the other stuff that people are going there for. You know, and I get it, it's not a big amount of money we're talking about.
Right.
For clarity, when you say the 3,000 and the 4,000, are they the combination of numbers, or are they a 3 to 4,000?
When I put this together last week, I didn't have time to finish that, but basically, 2,500 is about what we spend every year on utilities, pest control, dumpster, having the fire abatement system inspected. Then, depending on the year, we have some equipment expenses, if, say, a snow cone machine needs fixed or replaced, or we have to do some work on the building.
So, now that I understand that a little better, like I think about how we function when it comes to the things like the stadium and utilities, or the pool and the utilities, or you know, some of the other parks, or I guess in a lot of those instances, I feel like we absorb, you know, a part of that because it's the thing we're providing. I would just like to see us get to a point where, you know what I mean, where we make sure we have somebody there that can provide that amenity. You know, because obviously we're not going to do it. We're not going to be concessionaires. That is going to be part of our operation.
Right.
But at the same time, you know what I mean, that I don't know, that we're not charging some amount to do so that they have to struggle, maybe not struggle, but I guess I'm trying to figure out a way where it isn't worked to where they're looking at it as a necessity to turn a buck, if you will, as much as a yes, I'm gonna be open, I agree to these times, I agree to have these products, because I agree to be your amenity provider for these things. I guess Marty Snook Pool's a good example of that, where the county pretty much operates, you know what I mean, the pool and the concession. They don't allot that out, but they don't ever look at the concession as a money-making part of that particular park amenity. And I would like to see us try and figure out a way to get there. I don't think that I don't think that we're giving away the store, so to speak, by doing that. I don't think that we're eliminating opportunity. or providing favoritism to any entity. Any entity should be able to sort of, submit for that, but no different than Nina or the gentleman at the pool. I would want them to be, that amenity proprietor, not, have to, I don't know, get to that point where there's a
I think
cost competitiveness.
going into this, I was kind of believing myself that given all the activities in the park that existed for a long period of time, there was the opportunity for profit. I wouldn't have put the bid in had that not been the case. But in my tenure there, that's not been true. The profit, the ability to make a profit does not exist. At this point, I'm just trying to keep my head above water, trying to continue the amenity in the park. The concession in the park does have some nostalgic value for me. I took my kids there when they were little. I say this often because it's such fond memories. I went into labor with both pregnancies, walking the park during labor. So it's a very fond place for me, and I like being there. And there are a large number of people in the community that have a fondness for the park. I just don't want to see it go by the wayside, and I still want to be a part of it. But I don't want to plummet financially in the process. So essentially, that's where I am.
Nina, hi. Were you able to apply for the Rise Up grant or any funding?
The thing about my employees is they're all contracted
Okay.
seasonally, and they revolve quite a bit. I hire college kids that might be new coming in, and so some of them don't even qualify for 1099. They're there such short term. So I did not apply for any grants for my employees because at the time we didn't have any. They weren't hired, and the ones from the previous season, only a couple came back, and they had already gone in a different direction. So no, I haven't applied for any grants or assistance. No.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, are you open when the band shell is open, when they have different movies and things like
We
that?
are. The first year we started, the first 2 nights, there were a movie night, there were large crowds. And then, like I said, the rain was unbelievable. Been a lot of canceled events because of that the first year. And then there's been a consistent decrease in attendance across the board. This year in particular, the Park and Rec is trying really hard to keep activity in the park, but people are just not coming. There are some that attend, and we do have diehards, but the numbers are just not there. I would in the past, in the previous years, set up satellite concessions down near the band shell during movie night and music in the park and et cetera. But the numbers aren't even there, and I can't spread staffing so thin. We barely have enough people in the park to keep one person in the stand at a time.
Yeah, and I think for us, and I don't know how all your staffing works, but I would not want just one person working in that at any one time.
What we do is we
Just
schedule it so
my
the
2 cents.
younger folks are opening and older folks are closing. And the park attendants are great during those late nights. Our park attendants are wonderful. I've even had park attendants walk the employees out to their cars. So we feel very safe there, and again, our park attendants are wonderful. I can't say enough.
For the movies and the concerts, I think we've been getting like 100 to 150 people, which is not too bad for a pandemic situation. It's not too many people, but it's not as good as what we've had in years past, where we've had movies where we've had 400 or 500 people just a year or 2 ago.
So I don't know how you guys feel, and I know I have been pretty much no on all the rent relief requests just because we're struggling too, but the service that you provide in our park is very important. I feel like this is kind of a different scenario because it is City Park, it is kind of the gem of our town, and the service that you provide is needed there. So I kind of feel like we need to do our part to help you stay open.
How do they structure it, Kristen, at the, you said at Marty Snook Park? Are those,
So the county does not use an outside vendor. to provide the service, the county basically provides it with its own seasonal staff. And then purchases product and sells the product, and that's part of the overall pool, you know, revenue and expense.
So just
All I'm saying is, in this case, I'd love to get to a point where, you know what I mean? There's some good balance to say, okay, we're gonna make sure the concession's open, you know, what that person makes, they make. We're just not going to, you know, lose ourselves.
Right, cover
you
our
know.
costs.
Yeah, like to the degree where, yeah, where, you know, where there isn't. And I just think that there's gotta be some place, there's gotta be some balance.
Is there, so
there.
it's, basically what you're talking about is a zero-sum budgeting kind of thing where the city makes back the cost of, the pest control, the dumpster, the utilities, and something for building
Some portion
maintenance.
commensurate with what we do for other places.
Well,
You know what I
we just did that for the skating rink. I mean,
Right.
What are our savings this year at the park? I mean, do we have any savings this year?
We would had some utility savings when she wasn't open in April, May. I don't have that number in front of me. It'd be hundreds of dollars, I think. Electric, water, sewer.
But we can't really treat our parks concessions, and I'm thinking like fairgrounds or any place. Like, you guys don't go around and say, okay, this trash can was from the concession and this one was from, you know what I mean? The dumpster
Just-
cost is the dumpster cost.
Just with
'cause-
utilities, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no way, you know, like, they can pinpoint very specific things like, you know, the snow cone machine or something. Other than that, I think it gets a bit nebulous, where you've got a patron using a space, unlike the skating rink where that patron's there for that particular item, no differently than they are for the stadium or the swimming pool. Nobody's stopping by to, you know, throw their can in the garbage or use the restroom that isn't there for that purpose.
And I agree with Kristen and Emily. I think this is, these things are quasi-city, they're services, and I agree. I think that cost neutrality is the only thing I'm interested in out there. And, I don't know if we have an answer tonight to what we do about, you know, for instance, next year requesting rent relief. I think we have a way to decide, but I think we need to look at this. I would like to give the relief for this year that's needed, look about what we want to do next year. But I agree that this is not something that we need to be looking at as making money if we could do it at a cost neutral basis.
That's what I'm hearing several of you say is, we don't want to lose money, but you don't want to necessarily try to make money on it.
Yeah, we wanna cover our costs to have that building there and be
This is a
open.
service.
And be open. I mean, I think that's the important part, and be open.
And then, yeah, the person that staffs it and is there for the concerts in the park and the movie night and just general weekend traffic and supporting it, you know, that's kind of their business, how much they make, you know, I think.
So, what's the proposal is $1,500 would be her rent this year. For Taste of Reggae, their rent would be $500 for this year, and then next year we'll look at more of a cost neutral situation. Is that acceptable?
Yes,
Yeah, I think so.
yes.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you for what you do, Dina. Both of you, thank you.
Scott?
A couple things, Mayor. We did actually, we were watching to the side, Governor Hogan, he did go into phase 3, which is going to allow the theaters to open back up. I believe I caught where it said 50% capacity, which I think the Maryland Theater will welcome. I know we'll welcome that. So he also had some other stuff, but I don't need to share it here. Everybody can watch news, I guess, tonight. But I'm just thankful that the Maryland Theater is going to be able to open the doors back up to 50% capacity, and hopefully we'll get further down the road if people keep doing the right thing. Saturday evening is our street closure this week from 4 to 9 on South Potomac Street in the first block. Outdoor, we had a beautiful day on Sunday for outdoor seating, and it was very well attended. And I think we're supposed to have another nice weekend this weekend. So it'll be a Saturday evening, not Sunday, Saturday evening, 4 to 9. Imagine Hagerstown was, I think, a success again last Friday night, even though it rained a little bit. Had a nice crowd for Zace and Josh Morningstar. It was nice to see some old friends from the South End and Funkstown come out and support Josh, and it was a very good evening and nice little bit of foot traffic downtown too in the rain. So I appreciate Community Affairs, DCED for getting that together, and also having a plan B should the rain have kept up. We were going to be able to go into the Borough Box and do a virtual Imagine Hagerstown again, but I'm glad we didn't have to resort to that. And also Monday is Labor Day, and city offices will be closed that day. That's all from me, Mayor.
Kristen?
I have nothing this evening.
Austin?
Nothing this evening.
Emily?
I just wanted to take a second to thank the Parks Department for helping with the Washington Goes Purple kickoff on Thursday. It went very well. I will say Chris Herron, who travels all over the country to speak, said our park was the most beautiful one he's ever seen. I thought that was a compliment to the work that they do. And I was at the brunch on Sunday. It was very well attended, and I think Shelley has spoken to this before. I really think we should have some serious conversations about next year, spring and summer, shutting the street down on both Saturday and Sunday if possible, because the restaurants are investing in outside chairs and umbrellas, and it really was just a good environment for Sunday brunch. I think we should look at doing both days to help out. That's all.
Nothing, Mayor.
I just want to say happy birthday to Scott.
Yes.
Happy birthday. Tressa said we had to say happy birthday, and I figured I'd do it here. So, happy birthday.
Thank you.
That's
Good
it.
to be 39 again.
Yes, congratulations. Follow
I don't know
that.
where to go after that comment, that's for sure. Hey, I wish you happy birthday again.
Thank you.
And also happy birthday to Paul Quarterman, who was sworn in today as our new senator. So I totally agree. I'm glad we finally have a council that actually wants to look at closing that first block of South Potomac Street down on Saturday and Sundays.
Yes, it's awesome.
Good.
It's gonna snow.
I've only been calling for that since 2007. It's not bad.
Well,
Took
that's not
13
bad.
years.
That's not bad.
All right, we're adjourned.
Welcome to Council Wrap. I'm Wes Decker, and I'm joined by Jim Bender, Assistant City Attorney, and now all of a sudden he's an attorney. No, he is actually he's actually Assistant City Engineer, of course. I haven't done this for a while, Jim, so pardon me. It's been a while since the last time we've done a Council Wrap, so just a slip of the tongue there. But we're talking about something that, when you look at the item on the agenda, you're sort of like, okay, what exactly are we talking about? And obviously, we covered it in the meeting itself. Central Chemical, passive surface water sampling on city properties. And as you outlined in the meeting, this is something that goes back a number of years. And I think anyone who has been in Hagerstown for any period of time, their ears perk up a little bit when they hear Central Chemical. So can you kind of just bring us up to date on where we are at that site at this point in time?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what I know, which we are not directly involved with the day-to-day remediation plans out there. But as I said during the council meeting, the site was designated as a Superfund site in 1997. And since that time, it's gone through a whole series of evaluations, trying to characterize or figure out just how bad is the contamination problem there, what does it consist of, and then spending a lot of time looking at different alternatives to try to clean the site up. And I believe what the current plan is, they do have a final plan of action, and it consists of a couple different components. One is for the groundwater at the site. I believe the plan is that they are actually going to install extraction wells and pump groundwater out and try to filter it or take out some of the contaminants before they're put back in the ground. The larger part of the project, though, is those trenches or pits that are on the site, where I said that they disposed of pesticides, fertilizers, chemicals long ago. EPA has pretty much decided that the safest thing to do is to not try to dig them up and remove it from the site, just because it's more likely to spread that material around, or it'll get in the air. So instead, what they're going to do is actually put a cap over the site. It could be a soil cap or a concrete cap, to try to keep rainwater from falling down on the ground and infiltrating through the ground and sort of leaching through those chemicals. Because really what they're trying to do is keep that material on site, keep it from migrating away.
And these passive sampling devices that they will be installing at City Park, at the lake, and at Jonathan Hager House in the spring, can you describe what they will be like and what they will do? Because I'm guessing that anybody who will visit either of those sites won't even know that they're there.
No, they won't. At least I doubt that they will. They basically are just going to look like a section of pipe or tube that's down in the water. And inside that tube is, I don't have all the details on it, but it's actually some sort of a sensor or a sampler that over time, it's sort of constantly measuring certain characteristics of the water that's there, and also setting aside little samples of that water as it's testing it. And what EPA wants to do is look at, over a period of, say, 2 months, looking at a whole series of readings over that time to sort of get a sense of, is it a contaminant or something that's showing up just in peaks, that one day you'll see it, the next day you won't, or is it more of just a low-level, sort of constant background percentage of that stuff showing up? So I think the gentleman that called in, Mr. Gunster, called that a time-weighted average type of sampling, and as far as the little bit that I know about it, I think that's the purpose.
And how long do we expect this remediation process to continue? Because this is a follow-up from 2014, 2015.
Yeah, well, it's actually much longer than that. It's Superfund sites, from what I know about them, are some of the slowest moving projects, remediation projects out there. As I said, the site was designated as a Superfund site in 1997, which was, 23 years ago?
Yeah.
And we're only to the point now where they've actually decided what they're going to do as a final remediation. And then just knowing how these things go, and there are fits and stops and things that happen along the way, I don't really know what their plan is, but I would be surprised if this remediation isn't still going on 10 years from now.
And will Newfield's findings on what they get from these samples, will they be made public then at some point?
It is all public information. I mean, I think that it's the information, all the study reports go to EPA, and so I don't know that they would necessarily present a final report to the council. Certainly it could be requested, and I'm sure that they would. But regardless, they're public documents that EPA would have, so certainly someone could file a Freedom of Information Act request and get them.
Well, thank you for your very lawful answers, Jim. Now let me turn to the city engineer, Rodney Tissue. And Rodney, it was really kind of your show today, as it turned out, as far as the council meeting was concerned. A lot of things where your fingerprints were on them to some degree. Let's talk about the Hagerstown Ice and Sports Complex, because the HIAAA has done a great job of running that particular facility. I think we can all agree on that. And it's just right now, I think the number one thing that was presented today, the first thing that was talked about, was some necessary repairs, so to speak, to the facility itself. And when you talk about a lack of insulation and what's happening with that condensation, it is something that, as Paul Sweeney said, has become very unsafe. So it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I think it's like any facility, you got to invest back in it over time. The ice rink, it's hard to believe, is 25 years old there now. So if you think about, if you have a furnace or a dehumidifier or a humidifier in your house that's 25 years old, it's probably not in tip-top condition by comparison of today's higher efficiency models and things like that. So basically, the issue is the dehumidifiers need replaced, and the insulation in the roof needs to be a little bit more robust from what they put in there originally.
And the insulation cost, as I understand it, that's about $51,000, and then the replacement of the dehumidifier, so to speak, is another $135,000. So what we're able to address right now, and what you talked about in the meeting, would be 75%, which would be the city's part of what we would be paying
Right.
for the insulation.
Right, it's our building.
Yeah.
We need to take care of it. We need to invest in it. So the agreement we have with the user groups that make up the Hagerstown Ice and Sports, Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association, HIAAA, is that when there's capital improvements like this that need done, we'll invest 75% of the money in our building, and they'll pay the other 25% through the fees and things that they gather as operating the structure. So, yeah, it's going to be a two-phase project because of the cost. But the mayor and council tonight gave us approval to move forward with the installation part of it.
Now, the other part of the discussion of what Paul was bringing before mayor and council tonight was rent relief for that particular facility. And certainly, we've been hearing that a lot over the last several months. I'm not sure, like with many things that are related to this pandemic, that there's a true right or wrong answer, but that's why it's presented to mayor and council, and then the council makes some semblance of a determination. And what they looked at here was the savings that was generated as it related to utilities, about $3,300 for the city during that 3-month time frame where essentially the ice and sports complex was unable to operate.
Right.
Said, okay, we'll give that back to you, but we'll consider the rest with a group of agencies who have asked for contributions, rent relief, things of that nature as a whole. I don't want to put you on the spot and say, hey, do you think that's fair? But at the same time, I think it's a very difficult decision for mayor and council, and just given the economic environment, how do you make that call? Because you're trying to come down on both sides of this, and I think, Councilman Alshire several times tonight, was looking at that word balance when he was talking about things. Man, it's almost impossible to do, isn't it?
Well, the analogy I heard today was it's hard to pull somebody to shore when you're drowning yourself. And, the city is facing the economic hardship just like everybody else is, and maybe worse in a lot of cases.
One thing we like about the HIAAA is they run it like a business. There are business people that are on the board, and they understand the operation of the rink and try to make it a good customer experience. They were closed for 3 months because of the COVID shutdown. But I think at this point, they'll take whatever we can give them to help them, and they'll just keep operating. And things are actually moving back in a really positive direction out there. The hockey league is doing really well. The junior leagues are doing well, and they're starting to see a trickle of public skaters coming back, wearing masks.
Yeah, I think it's incredible how some of these businesses have found creativity that perhaps they didn't even know they had, innovation, just to be able to survive, and then not only survive, but as you said, to try to get back to some semblance of normalcy, which is certainly not easy at all.
Right.
Thank you very much, Rodney. Appreciate it, Jim. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Have a happy Labor Day. We'll have next week off. No mayor and council meeting next week, but we'll be back on Tuesday, November 15th. And hopefully at that time I know everybody's titles. Thanks for watching. This has been Council Wrap. I'm Wes Decker.